Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a great guest on. Now, when it comes down to starting a business, a lot of times people are really looking at all of the trendy and trying to be, hey, all the businesses go in tech, but there are tons of opportunity in so many different industries. So when I saw Brevity and I saw kind of what they were doing and the space that they were playing in, I'm like, you don't hear a lot of companies jumping up and starting and running to this industry, but there's still so much opportunity here. So I'm very glad to have Elliot Kim on to talk about Brevity and the great work that they're doing. So welcome to the show, Elliot.
Thank you. Really appreciate being here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump right into Brevity, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of Brevity. My focus is primarily on the finance and operations side of the business. And so, my background, I studied economics and public policy. I was kind of interested on the policy side. So after I graduated college, which is when we started Brevity as a side project, I actually went to go work at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, which is where Brevity is also located right now. And so, yeah, that was like a very good learning experience, kind of, learning more on the, the, I would say the quantitative side of things, but very, very different than the work I'm doing right now.
I'm always curious, when you think about, like I said, that work you were doing is where did the idea for Brevity start to surface for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started the company with my two brothers, actually. I'm a twin. So my brother Dylan, he's a photographer, and he studied marketing. And so he actually covers the marketing side of the business. He's our head of marketing. And then my other brother, Brandon, he went to design school. So he's an industrial designer. So he's our head of design. And he's a year older than Dylan and myself. Yeah, I can't take credit for it. Actually, Dylan and Brandon kind of are the original, brain, it's like their brainchild. I would say that Dylan, when he was in college, Brandon was like, we should start a company, and then Dylan was like, hey, I have this I have an issue that I think could be a product that we could bring to market. And so Dylan was going abroad to Hong Kong from Syracuse University. And he's like, I wanted a bag that I could travel with and use as a student when I'm there. And so Brandon was like, okay, we can come up with an innovative camera backpack. And that's how it all started. It was like a very traditional looking backpack style where you could just take out a camera cube from it. And then it would just turn from a camera backpack to a regular backpack and vice versa. And so that was the initial push. We launched that on Kickstarter. And I'll add that Brandon was also trying to get into design school at that time. He was, just graduating college. And so he used that as part of his portfolio to get in. And so that's kind of how the whole thing started. And then, the whole photography community loved the product. And then one thing led to another, and we've since just been growing and expanding beyond, just camera backpacks and really now trying to be the go-to everyday backpack
Mhm.
um, company.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's always interesting to hear, like how you started with, the camera backpack. I mean, solving that problem for, your photographers, people who were carrying camera equipment to here now you guys are expanding that. Kind of how has that kind of discovery process been? I mean, and how have you guys kind of taken feedback from customers to figure out, hey, where do we go next after cameras?
Yeah. So it's funny because, when you start a company, you get feedback from everybody, your friends, your family, and of course your customers are very vocal. And so, we were lucky to have customers, pretty much from day one, when the business was just really growing organically. Um, and, you know, it's funny because the photographer is a very particular customer, I would say. They're very gear focused, and they're very they have high demands, rightfully so. They're carrying really expensive equipment. And so from day one, we were held to a really high standard. If, somebody's going to be paying, $150 for a bag, they wanted it to be good and they wanted it to function well. And so, Brandon and, I'd say the whole team, we from day one had to focus and obsess over the product. and the product's developed a lot, and I think it's become, it's become a cooler product over time, with what we've been able to offer. But we've always been hyper focused on the product, and going from photography to like everyday backpacks has been I would say like an unnatural progression. Most people would maybe like start with everyday backpacks, which is an easier consumer, a bigger consumer, and then maybe dive into photographers, which are more of like a niche consumer. But we did the opposite. So we feel like we're in a really good position now to make a better product for the everyday market than almost any of our competitors are doing. So we feel our designs are like rock solid right now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I mean, what have been some of the, what have been some of the ways that you guys have like, gotten the brand out there? Because I mean, there are other players in the industry that are, making backpack, like you said, a lot of people start off with the standard, then they kind of work to the specialty, because it's a crowded space. So, what have been some of the things that you've seen that you guys have done to really get the brand out there?
Sure. So when we started in 2015, which is hard to believe, like over 6 years ago now. And when we started, it was just all organic. We were all still in college at that time. So for 3 years, it was just like, it was a side project for us. And so that was like the earlier days of Instagram. And we were still like just testing a bunch of stuff out. And so we were just sending it to like big Instagram accounts, and they would post it for us, or we'd pay like a small fee for some select ones. And we really just grew organically. So for, almost 3 years, we didn't spend any money on marketing, or minimal money on marketing. And so we weren't also taking like any pay from the company at that time. We were just, I was, working another job, or we were in college at that time. So the whole business was pretty much covered. And that allowed us to just seed, all the profit we took, we just put it back into the business. Whereas like, we're bootstrapped, so a lot of companies wouldn't have been able to do that. They would say, I need to raise money to pay my salaries, or to grow my team. But we were lucky for 3 years to not have to do any of that, and that gave us huge momentum going into 2018 when we jumped on full time, to be at a run rate where we could look to really scale the business. So since then, now we spend significantly on digital ad platforms and across marketing channels. But yeah, from those early days, I would say it was super, super scrappy.
Gotcha. Now, have you guys since taken on investors or raised funds?
No, to date, we are completely bootstrapped. We launched the Kickstarter at the beginning to get it going, but we feel fortunate to have been able to do it this way so far.
And, I think that's an amazing thing because, I've worked with startups where we've gone through that process of raising capital. And one of the things that I explain to people is like, every time you raise capital, there is a little bit more of control that you're handing over. I mean, so I get, and a lot of people look at, hey, if you raise capital, you can scale faster. Kind of, have you guys had to have those discussions about, hey, you know what, we're good the way we're doing it? And I guess have people approach you about investing in the business?
So yeah, we've had a number of investors over the years approach us. I think it's been increasing as we've been getting bigger. But as brothers, we just said, we wanted to be able to carry out our values and what this company is, and value our relationship more than maybe what what investors would have done if we had raised money at an early stage. I think our valuation would have been lower than we wanted it to be. And then, you know how the story goes. So I would say, right now we're really happy with the growth we've had. If we didn't have the opportunity to bootstrap it for, or to start it, for 3 years without taking any pay and just rolling over the profits, we may have had to raise money from investors, but, we grew at 300% last year. So, we're really happy with those growth numbers despite everything bootstrapped.
I absolutely love it. That is always amazing to hear. So, when people are getting a Brevite backpack and they get their product, what's been some of the, the feedback or, the customer reviews that people have said about the product?
So I think the products that, I'll say the best part about us, and Brandon and our design team, they're super competent. And so they're always incorporating the feedback that we get. And so over the years, it's been a huge iterative process. And, some of our best selling products today are future iterations of the first product that we launched, 6 years ago. And so, right now the reviews are phenomenal. You can check, on site. We have a product on Amazon that has phenomenal reviews. And, I think that's something we really pride ourselves in, is just offering, a super good product.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, speaking of the product, where can people find it online and how can people get their hands on the product?
Yeah, so we're at Brevite on Instagram. That's where you can check out who we are and what we're about. And then you can get our products at our website at www.brevity.co. And a little bit on Amazon, as I mentioned, but our direct website is where we do most of our business.
Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. Now, before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest that comes on is like, when you think about, where you guys have been and you think about the journey that you've been on, and, I know there's probably been a ton of lessons learned. So what are 2 lessons that you kind of learned that you think would be helpful to other business owners?
So I think for us, the biggest thing is we set a really good foundation and we didn't rush things. And so part of the whole bootstrap story for us was we got to learn the business inside and out, and we're first-time founders. And so, as first-time founders, we didn't know the business. I mean, I came from a completely different industry, and, we weren't product people before, we weren't e-commerce or marketers before. And so, I think taking the time to really understand your business before, trying to rapidly scale. So, one piece of advice I say to people is build your foundation first. That's super important. So have everything ironclad so that you can go from, $0 in revenue to, 6 figures, then to 7 figures and beyond. Because, once you have a good foundation, the rest just should fall in place much better. The worst thing that you can be doing as a business owner, and I'm sure from a lot of your people, the companies that you work with, is like putting out fires is way more expensive after the fact, and just leads to a lot of delays for things. And that's not what you want when you're trying to grow a company. And then that was one. So then the second thing I would say for people is, do what matters to you, and drive your purpose home and your mission, and make that be seen in your company. And I think, as 3 brothers, we wanted our fun loving relationship to come across in our brand. And we also, even more than that, we wanted what we value to come across in our brand. And so, we're not just a backpack company. We want to be about more than just backpacks. There's a lot of backpack companies out there, a lot of good backpack companies out there, but we wanted to be one, that was more than just backpacks. So our real purpose is to create lasting change for the greater good. And, we're trying to do that through, supporting our community, having a positive impact where we can on, the environment, our materials, and our, offering better function from our products. And so all of those things, I would say, are at the core of who we are. I mean, I think that's important for other founders to find.
Awesome. Well, Elliot, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And before we wrap up, can you share the website one more time so people know where they can go to get their hands on the product?
Yeah, www.brevity.co, brevite.co.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Elliot, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure having you.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Appreciate that.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.